May I ask who logged on as 038008?
Robin Kramer, MR 911.
Great, thank you, Robin. We do have quorum to the co-chairs. It is 9 o'clock.
All right.
So we are able to get started.
All right. Let's do this. Thank you. I can't see everybody, but I believe you. So, all right. Well, good morning, members of the 911 Study Committee. This meeting is now called to order. Please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. We'll now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members. So MAG staff will do the roll call and confirm that we have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start off with Dan Cotterman.
Here.
Josh Wright. Saw Josh log on, maybe he logged off. Come back to him. We'll go to Brent Axine.
Here.
Michelle Potts.
Morning.
Thank you. Stephanie Heinzelman.
Present.
Thank you. Allie Edwards.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Tracy Mills.
Here.
Thank you. I think Melissa DeAnda said she could not make it, but I'll check. Melissa DeAnda. Okay. Chip Kirk. Jeff Shripsema.
Shripsema, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan O'Neill.
Present.
Thank you. Dale Naninga.
Present.
Thank you. Go back. Did I miss anybody? Josh Wright is logged on. Good morning.
Good morning. Present.
Thank you. And Kevin Phelps.
Here.
And Chris Brady.
Here.
Good morning. Thank you all. We do
All right.
have quorum.
All right, very good. Do we have any written comments from, this is the call to the audience. Do we have any online written comments for call to the audience?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any comments for any items.
All right, good. We'll now move to item number 3 is approval of the meeting minutes. Does any member of the committee have any questions regarding the minutes? Hearing none, prior to approval of the meeting minutes, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. Do we have any online comments on or do we have any online comments for the rest of the agenda? I guess I should ask it that way, Nate.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, no, we do not have any comments for
Okay.
this or any other item on the
Okay.
agenda.
Great. So we need a motion to approve agenda item number 3 for the minutes. Do I have a motion?
This is Brent Axine. I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thanks, Brent. Do we have a second?
This is Dan Cotterman. I'll second.
Thanks. So we have a motion and a second. We'll now take a vote. We'll have those participating in the meeting take part in a voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so that staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. All right. If you have your cameras on, those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right. Nate, do you need a follow-up on any of those?
Just to Mr. Chairman, Jeff. Jeff, how do you vote?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brent, please.
Aye. After I beat my camera up, it doesn't work. So there you go.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll now move to item number 4. This item is on the agenda for information discussion and will be presented by Greg Denton. Greg, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate your preparation for this meeting. He's the State of Arizona 911 Program Administrator. So, Mr. Denton, we'll turn the time over to you. It looks like you have your presentation up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Brady. We could go to the next slide. Good morning, everybody.
the ask was to provide a Next Gen 911 update for the state. What you see before you is our typical website diagram, a dashboard, if you will. And so right now, from a landmass standpoint, overall, we're about 98% complete. Population, we're about 66, just shy of 67% complete. We did complete, I think the last time since we've talked, Mesa Fire migration was cut over successfully on 10/2. And then the Mesa Police Department successfully cut over on 11/6. Both those went smooth, according to the feedback that I got back from Mesa. So we're happy about that. And the three left, you can see there at the bottom right, Chandler Police Department. They have been moved to 1/8. I can't remember if we talked about this last time, but the reason why they got pushed later is because they were signed or planned to go on what they call host 4, which is the host mainly for AT&T in the East Valley of Maricopa County. And host 4 filled up faster than expected. And so they stood up a new host 6. And so that's why Chandler is being pushed. Does provide some advantage to where if we have host 6 stood up at both AT&T locations, Phoenix and LA, if we have any additional machine software resource strains, we can move people onto that host so we have additional capacity. We go to the next slide. Just a quick, smaller representation so you can see what we have left is Phoenix takes up the big majority of what's remaining. Chandler is down at the right corner. If we go to the next slide. So here's our outlay. I've mentioned Chandler PD. This is what's remaining for the state and Maricopa County. Chandler PD on 1/8 is the migration. Phoenix Fire, Lower Buckeye, set for 2/18 as it stands today. And then 12th Street for Phoenix Fire is 2/19. So back-to-back days for those two locations. And then City of Phoenix Police, Elwood, 100 East Elwood is on 2/25. And then the next day we'll be doing the 620 West Washington. All of that, to my knowledge, today is on track to make those dates. The 100 West Washington is set for 3/26 of 2025. And I think there's a recent communication that there might be a power issue at that location, and that date may slip a little bit. And we can support that, whatever that needs to be. Our focus is these first 4 to make sure we get those done correctly and on time. If you go to the next slide. I won't read all this, but basically I'll cover just the highlights. So this is just a quick update on Chandler. So they start their what we call ATP testing on Monday, and that's Comtech and AT&T working together, doing pseudo calling and testing of the new host 6 that they stood up at both locations to Chandler. That'll go on for the entire week and conclude probably Thursday, and they have Friday if need be as a follower day. So that will be next week, and then their migration, like I mentioned, is 1/8. All the room equipment is in, 100% complete. Configurations are 90% complete. They'll be done. And then the circuits, layer 2 circuits, are 100% complete. So we're set for Chandler. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk about Phoenix Fire first. As it stands right now, the equipment deployed is 100%. Host configurations are 80% and on track. Circuit connections, 50%, but they're on track. The Comtech core services to both locations, if you remember, Phoenix Fire and Phoenix PD are premise services, hosts on-premise services, which is different than the rest of the state. We did that for the redundancy and resiliency of the system. They're about 20, I think they're about 30% right now. They're slightly behind, but it's not a concern by Comtech at this time. System testing is scheduled for 2/10. It'll complete on 2/14, and then their migration, like I mentioned, is 2/18 and 2/19. And generally, just speaking of the last bullet there, we typically do these from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. 98% of these migrations start at 8 o'clock and end before noon, sometimes as early as 10:30 in terms of the initial system change. But I think I've talked to Jeff and Nicole, and they may want to do that a little bit earlier. I know we ran a little bit earlier for Mesa, and that's very doable. So we'll work through those details as we get closer to migration. We go to the next slide. So this is police, and we're 100% complete for the backroom equipment. On-premise host scheduled. Host configurations are scheduled for the week of 12/9, so that's happening as we speak. And then the layer 2 switches is about 66% complete on track. ComTech, again, 20%. I mentioned probably closer to 30-40% at this time. They're slightly behind, but not a concern at this time. And again, they're due to be testing on 2/17 to 2/21, and then their cutover dates are 2/25 and 2/26, as I mentioned. We'll go to the next slide. Just a reminder, I thought it might be good to have this if you go to the next slide after that. I know we presented this to the city of Phoenix here a few days ago. Just want to remind everybody. So AT&T currently has 14 technicians in the state of Arizona that support. Let me retract that. They have 14 technicians that support Arizona. I'll show you here a diagram and to explain that better. 7 of those technicians are in Maricopa County, will support all of city of Phoenix and other Maricopa County PSAPs on a priority basis. We will hold the AT&T technician support accountable for the 3 main, and we've discussed this before with the study committee, SLAs, where they will meet the 5 nines of service. That's a NENA standard. And then also critical system issue, 1 hour response time. Typically, that's been a lot faster than 1 hour. And then the critical mean time to repair, MTTR for short, is 4 hours. And again, typically any critical item we've had has been repaired within an hour to date. And also just a reminder from the beginning, AT&T has commented and stated that if they are having difficulty meeting these SLAs, they will bring in more technicians as needed. Go to the next slide. This should be a graphic that shows where the technicians reside. There's 14 trained and actively working, as I mentioned, but the 3 down at the Yuma, bottom left corner of our state, those 3 technicians live just across the border, but they support Yuma, and then sometimes they'll help out with other areas as well. On the left, we talk a little bit about how the hierarchy is. So if a PSAP is down with service, which we hope never happens, that's obviously going to take priority. And then if we have a PSAP that's down with 50% of their system, meaning their consoles or there's something going on that's creating not all the console positions to work, that's the next priority. And then after that, it's critical alarms impacting 911 call processing at the PSAP. And then eventually the non-critical alarms impacting the PSAP. I know it probably goes without saying, but that's the hierarchy that they use. So typically let's say if we've migrated, fast forward maybe 6 months from now, City of Phoenix Fire or Police are having a problem, the system is not acting right compared to something in, I don't know, Apache Junction, and we have to make a decision, or AT&T has to make a decision. They're going to handle both. There's enough technicians, but the priority will be City of Phoenix due to the call volume and also the risk. You go to the next slide. Next steps, we want to complete migrations, obviously, due to finish up in 2025, hopefully in March, April, depending on what we find out with 100 West. We will maintain the MR91 system will be maintained. The funding from the state will be maintained 30 days after that last cutover, which should be the 100 East Elwood and 620 West Washington. Once that cutover is complete and successful, at any time MR91 could turn down their system, and then we will wait for the 100 West location to be ready, and then we will do that migration from 620 to 100 East, and then you'll have just the 2 final police department PSAPs in operation. I mentioned there's currently a delay on the City of Phoenix fire issue at the 100 West building. We're going to find out more about that here, I think, next week. And also I want to tell you there's a new AT&T call handling service trouble ticket dashboard that's going to be ready probably the end of Q1, if not sooner. They've been working on it for a while. This will be a dashboard that all PSAPs and leaders want to look at to see what their ticketing is, process times and everything. It's pretty basic, but it does provide some valuable information for anybody that would like to use it. We have the first chance that we have to bring this to everybody. We will make it available for viewing. And like, again, I think it's going to be probably February, early March of 2025 before that's done. And this is a typo on my part. I changed it on my diagrams. Item 4, the call handling system. So the AT&T release, we're currently setting on 7.9. We're going to 8.2. But 8.2, they found something they didn't like. So we're moving to 8.3. So that is going to happen in Q1. And we will start likely with the Maricopa County PSAPs and work back through the other process in the different phases. We want to get 8.3 working up for Maricopa County first. I think that's all I have. We'll go to the next slide and see if there's any questions. I'm not sure if I had another. No, that's it.
All right, thanks, Greg. Any questions for Greg? Greg, I had heard at some point early on in the process with the city of Phoenix, issues related to the funding of PSAPs and how that all works out and whether they were going to be short funding of PSAPs through this process. Had you heard anything about that?
Mr. Brady, no, I haven't. So I know that you said City of Phoenix specifically, correct? Yeah. So what I have recently done is we did an update on the fiscal year 2025 grant award agreement. That's being handled by Liz Graber. Last week I sent her an updated version of that. We had a call. There was some cost reimbursements that were trying to be managed from my predecessor with her. And so with specific to Luke Air Force Base. And so I have since approved that. And so because of that, we needed to change the agreement. I'm not sure if that's where that's coming from, but as a whole, the fiscal year 2025 grant award covers everything in Maricopa County, and the one for Phoenix covers Phoenix completely as far as all the costs that we're aware of.
Okay, so as far as all their 911 positions that they have currently, will all those be funded?
Yes, sir. There's what was agreed to was the 102 for City of Phoenix, split in 2 different locations, and then the 35 funded positions for Phoenix Fire, split in 2 different locations. That's what was agreed to, but I think that is something that between Phoenix and the state we'll be looking at over the course of the next year and reevaluate what the needs might be.
Okay, maybe that's it, because I think there was something about they had 165 positions in police and 50 positions in fire. I don't know enough details of this, Greg, but it sounds like you're in conversations. Is there anybody on the?
No, I'm sorry. They were funded for 127 positions in the prior grant year, and we increased it to 137 positions because of how fire is now managing their 2 locations. So there was an actual increase, not a decrease. There was some initial preliminary conversations that I was involved with. Travis Jensen and others were involved with the city of Phoenix regarding whether those were sufficient. It was determined that they were sufficient, and that was what the grant application was submitted at, and then it was awarded accordingly.
Good. Is there anybody on Phoenix here?
Sure. Jeff's on the phone. He can speak as well from his perspective, of course.
Lisa, we're getting an echo from yours. I don't know if you're on a phone and a computer, but we're getting a double echo. Okay.
Good morning, Jeff Scripps. I'm Assistant Fire Chief with Phoenix Fire Department. So some of the initial concerns were that the original verbal commitment was not exactly matched by what the state actually funded. We've had multiple discussions with that. The concern moving forward right now is we still have not seen any sort of metrics that identifies how these positions are actually funded, by what data points is the state using by which they make the decision for us. So although we believe that we needed more positions, we still haven't seen any documentation to support what the state's decision has been on. So that's been our point of contention thus far. What we really want to know moving forward is for the next grant cycle is by what metrics they're rating us on, so that we can identify what we feel our future needs are as we see our centers grow, as we see our staffing levels grow, as we see our call volumes go up. That has just kind of put us a little bit in the dark as to where we are and what we feel that we may need to negotiate in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair. So Greg, maybe that is the question, that when this whole future funding process and that whole grant, that's always been kind of a bone of contention, I guess. And I know you're fairly new to this, but I think we talked about that at, sometime in the past about kind of what that would look like. Is there going to be a articulated, document that kind of explains how that process is going to work in the future?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So the answer to that is we are trying to find a good methodology to do that. So in the grant request that comes after the NOFA goes out from each PSAP, if a PSAP needs feels that they need a new position, new console, they will ask for it. And then as a program, we evaluate that based on several factors in the past and as a group rating. And then most of the times we're able to approve those based on budget availability. Going forward, we've been trying to find an algorithm or a calculation that can do this. We've reached out to all of our constituents throughout the states, and there's nothing that anybody's using, and they're all struggling from the same problem. We are currently working on some additional data analytics with our data analytic provider that might be able to give us some additional information to make those type of decisions easier and understandable for everybody. We're not quite there yet, so I guess that's something that I would like to say, give us a little more time for this next budget cycle. I think we might be able to have something a little bit more in place. But just to answer Jeff's question is if a PSAP needs another position, they put in for it on their grant request, and then we evaluate it based on all the information available to us at that time. That's been the past. Going forward, we want to try to have a better way of measuring that.
Right. And so Greg, in the past, I think MAG kind of did a kind of a group effort to come up with an ask, but now you're going to get it from everybody singularly. Every entity individually is going to be asking you. Is that what you're anticipating?
Yes, in the past. So if you look outside of Maricopa County, the rest of the state, I'll pick on Mojave County Sheriff's Office up in Mojave County by Kingman. If they needed another position, which they did, they asked for a couple more. I think this was a year or two ago, and they asked for it. And so we'll handle it the same. We'll handle it the same way based on the request from the PSAP individually.
Okay. Well, I think we would appreciate, that explanation as early as possible, and maybe where you could have it as a draft and let us maybe kind of weigh in on it as our thoughts, to kind of just make sure before we get into the actual implementation, we at least have an opportunity to kind of share some thoughts on that.
Understood. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that. We're always open to input from everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Greg?
Mr. Chair, this is Allie Edwards with Phoenix PD. I just wanted to comment on something about the position count for Phoenix. Before this transition, we only had 102 positions funded, and we currently still do only have 102 positions funded, so we were not allotted any more. There were talks of going to 165 because that is our total position count between both sites. So I think that's where the 165 and where we would like to get to.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
So Allie, are those filled? I mean, are those then if they're not funded by the state, then the city's picking up the difference? Is that what's going on?
Not at the moment. We are trying to figure out how we are going to pivot our operations and look into some different technology to fund those positions, or to look at it,
Okay.
or to see if the city does need to fund more positions.
I'm sure they can find the money, Ally. Just ask nice.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, any other questions for Greg? Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that, Ally. All right, Greg, thank you so much for this work. Congratulations on the successful implementation that you're going through right now, and hopefully continue that with Phoenix. And, you know, Josh just has to stand out and be different and wait get it at the end and get on a whole separate system. But, you know, that's Josh. He just likes to do things differently.
Save the best for last in this county.
Well,
There you go.
thank you.
There you go.
All right, Greg, thank you very much. Appreciate all
Yeah,
you're
Mr.
doing and helping us make this work.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bray, do you guys need us to stay on this call, or shall we drop at this
I'm
point?
looking at Nate. I don't think so. I think we're doing okay, Nate, right? I mean, the rest of this is more internal.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. We don't need ADOA to stay on the line.
Thank you very much, Greg.
Okay. Guys, take care.
All
Thank you.
right. Let's see. We're ready to go to item number 5. This item is on the agenda for action. It will be presented by Audrey Skidmore, Information Technology Director, and Nathan Pryor, Special Projects Administrator. Go
Great.
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Chair Brady, Chair Phelps. This item is on the agenda for action. I'll go ahead and read the action requested. Screen.
We'll wait 1 second for Craig to get there.
There we go.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Thank you, Craig.
So the action requested today of the 911 Study Committee is to recommend approval to sunset the MAG Public Safety Answering Point Managers Group and the MAG 911 Oversight Team 30 days after the successful migration of the region to state contract service, coinciding with the conclusion of services provided by Maricopa Region 911. With that, Mr. Chairman, we'll do a walkthrough, some presentation, providing more context as to the rationale behind this proposed recommended approval. Next slide, please. So just by way of background on some history of 911 system in the MAG region, MAG was formed in 1967. We were a growing region with regional issues to be addressed, including building codes, transportation, environmental, human services, and others. And over time, the policy and programmatic areas that MAG has focused on has changed to match regional priorities. In 1985, MAG was instrumental in implementing a regional 911 system. At that time, the region relied on technical expertise from MAG member agencies through the MAG 911 Technical Advisory Committee, which helped develop electronic switching capabilities where calls could be received within each city. That system went live on September 9th, 1985. Fast forward over time, we've clearly grown in terms of our number of our committees. We have our MAG Public Safety Answering Point Managers Group, which is comprised mostly of managers of the PSAPs. We have the MAG 911 Oversight Team, comprised of senior level public safety, police, and fire. And our most recent addition, as this committee is aware, is the MAG 911 Study Committee, currently comprised of city town managers, leadership from the oversight team and PSAP committees, as well as senior police and fire. Next slide, please. So by way of reminder on MAG's responsibilities to date regarding 911, until recently, the primary responsibility for MAG as it relates to 911 has been to develop and approve annual budgets for submittal to ADOA 911 office. However, with the action taken in January of 2024 by the Regional Council, based on recommendations of Management Committee and the Study Committee, MAG no longer serves in this role. Since January of this year, we've been in a transition period as negotiated with ADOA, which ultimately will result in the conclusion of the contractual arrangement with the City of Phoenix to provide 911 services. As I mentioned, MR 911 is set to conclude their activities 30 days after the last PSAP has migrated. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we're on to this proposed sunset of the PSAP managers and oversight team. To date, much of this year, we've been providing updates, and really ADOA has been providing updates onto the migration to those two committees. So we've become very limited in what's discussed at those committees, really focusing on the transition to state contract service. We do appreciate ADOA participating in our meetings and providing those updates. With the sunset of the PSAP and oversight team, being proposed in this is to retain the MAG 911 Study Committee. And we'll go to the next slide, please. As we look ahead to ADOA's activities, one of these was touched on in the previous item. They're looking to evaluate their grant process and update and refine that. Also on ADOA's horizon is the state contract renewal and evaluation thereof. ADOA has let us know that they are also going to evaluate their state advisory board and the representation responsibilities therein, as well as continue to meet with PSAPs, both sub-regionally, East-West Valley, and individually. So there's an opportunity to continue monitoring, tracking, providing input as to ADOA's 911 activities, both statewide and in the region. Next slide, please. So annually, we do have an assessment for our 911 activities. To date, that's been utilized for MAG staff time, consultant studies, but the majority of that assessment has been going to City of Phoenix and their operations of Maricopa Region 911. In the current fiscal year, we're seeing that assessment as $196,724. The $135,000 is what gets sent to Phoenix again to maintain Maricopa Region 911 operations or help to maintain that. The balance going to MAG staff time. Just a note in this, because of that arrangement with City of Phoenix, they have not been paying the assessment, as well as we have 4 other member agencies within Maricopa County not paying the assessment: Gilbert, Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, and Wickenburg, due to them moving out of the MR 911 system early and onto state contract service. So they're currently not paying that assessment. And just a note in this as well, the Pinal County members have not been served by MR 911 and to date have not been paying that assessment. On this conversation point, I'll turn it over to Ed Zerker, who's going to talk a little bit more about the assessment.
Yeah, I don't know that we have a whole lot more to say there other than, Mr. Chair or co-chairs, is you think about the future of what you want the MAG involvement to be. Anything more than very minimal staff time is what we have used the assessment for. And so if there's a desire to continue in this, we would need to talk about what level of assessment, if any, would make sense. And that's going to be tied directly to what it is that the membership would like to accomplish together through the MAG forum as it relates to 911, if anything. And so that's really kind of the place, I think, for the discussion. So I think the first thing is, what do you want to do with the committee structure at MAG given the transition of 911? And the follow on to that is, given what that desire is for what to be accomplished, what to be done, the level of that will determine what the level of assessment would need to be going forward into the budget year that starts July 1 of 25.
Okay. So yeah, Kevin, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, I still think we're still going to be needing the support of MAG staff, because there's still this the idea of, well, what's the future of 911 funding in the region? I also think staying on top of this new process, whatever it's going to be, and the grant process and what that's going to look like is, I think we're going to need help with that. So I don't know, Kevin, any thoughts on your side?
Yeah, you kind of hit on, in my mind, there's probably 3 benefits to doing it. Clearly we already know that there really wasn't enough funding to accommodate all the requests for station location. So we know funding's an issue. So we talked about that. Another one is, I think we need to have at least one somebody focused on emerging technologies and, emerging functionality that we can then kind of push. Otherwise, we're going to just really rely on kind of the statewide vendor to talk about what we should or shouldn't have. So I kind of like that ability to come together and to talk about, kind of those emerging technologies. So I think we might want to look at how we do the assessment, but I think there's benefit for the near future to continue on.
Ed, Nate, how does that work when, do you have any other assessments where cities decided to opt out of and then somehow you adjust your service to them? How does that work? Is it, are you in or you're out, or how do you like separate? When someone decides they're not going to pay an assessment, do you have that in any other situation?
We do not, Mr. Chair. This is unique. And it sort of predates me. I'm not sure how we got to where, I understand why the Pinal County members were not assessed because they were not members of MR 911, right? That makes sense.
Sure.
And even for AJ and Queen Creek, they paid an assessment for the portion of their area that was in Maricopa County. So it was really Pinal County, Florence, and the city of Maricopa that didn't pay because their police departments were not in MR 911. I'm not quite sure how the other 4 got out of the assessment for this last year, but here we are. But you're right, there is no other assessment like that. Once the regional council decides on dues and assessments, everyone's obligated, and everyone does pay into them. So it's really a conversation, I think, that's important to start here and get to management committee. And the timing is right because we're right at the beginning of budget development for 2025. So it's really, what do the members want to accomplish through continued work together on 911? Then we will attach what a reasonable cost for that is. And then everyone decides, is that worth it?
Okay.
So, but back to your point is, this is unique, how it's structured here with some in and some out.
Well, here's just off the top of my head. So it's just maybe what we ask you all to do, and maybe we need to give some more direction here, is like, okay, at least for the next year, next budget year, next couple of years, we need help we need follow up on all the things that Kevin talked about. I'm assuming there may be some discussions. I saw an article in the paper about pursuing, elevated funding for 911 across the state. So we need someone who's tracking that. This grant process, I think there's at least a year or two for sure of effort that we need from support from MAG staff. And maybe it would be helpful for you all to put together kind of what that would look like, right? What the resources would be needed. And frankly, I think we just say, no, this is just going to be part of the whole MAG budget period. It's not going to be a special assessment. It's just going to be included in the general overall, calculation of our MAG dues, not a individual separate thing. And because at the end of the day, you're going to be working on behalf of all cities. It's going to be hard if they're saying, well, we're not going to pay, but we'll be certainly glad that if you take up our cause and make it better for us, we'll like that. So.
Right. It's sort of the common good. There's a common good element that this is moving to. So, that's actually, Chris, that's a great thought, is perhaps it's a conversation about transitioning it into just the regular dues base, so it's not called out as something separate. But yeah, we can definitely work on that. I think, as you said, what's helpful to us right now is the sort of input of the type Kevin gave us of, here are the kind of things that we want to think about over the next 2-year period. And that's how we set our budget, is over 2 years. So that's probably a good block of time. Like, over the next 2 years, what does the leadership here represented by the study committee think is important? I think Kevin said those. I think we heard from the City of Phoenix staff about, wanting to get more clarity on the metrics or the algorithms or whatever it's going to be to measure what allows for the request of another staff person to be fulfilled. So things like that. And then some observation of the contracting for the future it would be as well. So we can develop a couple scenarios to bring back.
Yeah, it's a reset, right? It's not MR 911 anymore.
Correct.
It's complete. It's a very different what we're asking for.
That's correct. It's really a public safety really public safety oversight in some
Yeah,
ways.
communications, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any other, Kevin or anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, no, I think those are all great comments. And, I mean, I think we just need a framework so we can discuss things in the future that we may not anticipate today. I mean, there could be consolidation of PSAP issues. I mean, there's just a whole level of things we can be looking at. And I think, I think this group has worked well and the members have worked well. I think to do away with it now is just a little bit premature.
All right.
Just a note through the co-chairs, we see Josh Wright is on camera, and Josh didn't know if you wanted to offer
Yeah, go ahead,
some
Josh,
insight.
please.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo some of the comments. I think we've built up a lot of expertise in 911 services over the last 40 years of MAG being involved in this issue. I would hate to divest ourselves of that expertise and that seat at the table, if you will, all at once. So I am also very much in favor of a, I guess, revised scope of work for what MAG does with this, and that be applied to all of the member jurisdictions. We are certainly more effective on this when we speak with one voice. We've learned that through this process of everything else, that we can often have different unique elements in our cities, but we are better when we come together to advocate. And I think the advocacy side is one other piece that I would request be part of it. We are still in that transition phase on the governance side as to how this is going to be regulated and monitored in the future, and how we are going to get our voice heard with the state. We all know that it's very easy through state transitions and leadership to lose that seat at the table. And so I think by having this organized approach through MAG, we will have a better chance of being effective at making sure that our needs continue to be met. So I also agree with maintaining a revised scope for MAG with an assessment.
Thank you. Any other comments? I can't see everybody, so Nate, you're helping me out. So,
We're not seeing any others,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. With
so
hands
again,
raised.
now Phoenix, I'm assuming, understands that after when the state kind of divests itself of not supporting MR 911, then also the assessments that are being collected by MAG would also be impacted that same way. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. They know that through this fiscal year, we're budgeted and we are sending them their amount through June 30th of this year.
Okay.
And then after that, that stops.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, and Nate, you all feel like you have some clear direction as far as what we're asking for the future in a budget discussion?
Yes, this is very helpful, and it actually is going to turn around relatively quickly. So in January and February, we come back with the first conversations about the MAG budget, and we'll make this a centerpiece of that.
Okay.
So it really depends on, number one, the actions that you take in recommending today, and then the management committee takes about reducing from 3 committees to 1 committee. And then we will do some scenario planning over the next 30 days of different levels of activity, and we'll work through that with the management committee and you all as a recommendation for the amount of public safety communication work that the region wants MAG to continue to coordinate on its behalf.
Great.
So
Okay.
that is,
Thank you.
we have the right direction pending your action as a group.
Right.
On the committees.
Yeah. So we need to get back to the point here on this agenda, right, is to sunset the MAG Public Safety Answering Point Managers Group and the MAG 911 Oversight Team. And that's to be done 30 days after the successful migration, or we say Josh's successful transition to the state contract services, coinciding with the conclusion provided by the Maricopa Region 911. So I need a motion to that point. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So we need a motion to, again, sunset the MAG PSAP Managers Group and the MAG 911 Oversight Team, again, condition on the 30 days after successful migration of the state contract. So can we have a motion for that action?
This is Kevin. I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Dan Cotterman, I'll second.
Thank you, Dan. You always come through for me. I appreciate that. We have a motion and a second. We'll vote by turning on our cameras and unmuting our audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're just missing Stephanie Heinzelman and Brent Axine. Stephanie?
Do you see me now?
Yes.
Okay, yep. Aye.
Thank you. And Mr. Axine?
I have an eye and no camera, but.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes.
All right. Item number 6. Are there any requests for members for an item on the future agenda? I think we talked about that a little bit. And the next agenda item is comments from the committee. Any comments? Thank you all very much. I don't know, this is the committee that never ends, but we will keep marching forward. Thanks everybody for your time this morning. I think it was a great dialogue and discussion. It was good to kind of have a refresh and get updated on this. So thanks, MAG staff, for your work in putting this together, and appreciate the state and their presentation. So with that, I think we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very productive for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Take care.